right, everyone, welcome back to Wednesday Night Reviews. I'm your host, Konrad, and joining me today is the wonderful Chris Barnes, creator of Omega Squad, and we're here to talk about number 3. So, Chris, thanks for coming on the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's good to be here again.
Awesome. So, yeah, obviously, we're here to talk about your third book. So, when it comes to the story itself and everything like that, sort of what can people expect out of this third book?
In this third book, I went with a different story structure. And what I wanted to do was have each individual member of the team kind of have their own piece in the story. And then, so it's sort of broken up into 6 issues inside. And the first issue, they're all as a group. And then they each get their own individual story. And then the last issue, they come back together for completion of that. And so that's what you can expect.
Perfect. And as we've sort of discussed, offline and over text and things like that, your process has changed. So for those out there who don't know and haven't seen your work, I've got volume 1 right here,
Ooh.
followed by volume 2, and the original volume you made, the original comics, I should say, are in fact, they were ones that you had hand drawn and then put together.
Yeah.
For your sequel, you'd gone ahead and bumped up sort of your techniques, and you trained on more and learned more.
Yeah.
What's new and interesting when it comes to how you've made the third book?
Okay, yeah. So I put out volume 2 in December, early December, right? And took a bit of a break, and then I started writing volume 3 and drawing volume 3. And so it's drawn the same way. I draw it all in pencil on paper first, and I scan that, and then I was inking digitally like I did for volume 2. And sometime in late January, I watched the Mandalorian, like behind the scenes thing that's on Disney Plus,
Yeah.
and how they make that show. And so I don't know if you've seen that.
The show, yes. The behind the scenes, not yet.
Okay, so behind the scenes, so what they do on the Mandalorian is there's a few things in the room that are there, like this rock is here, and this speeder is there that they're touching and interacting with, and they're in this room called the volume, and it's a huge like dome shaped room, but all the parts of the dome are screens, like LCD screens or whatever. And so what they have done ahead of time is rendered the whole environment in 3D and matched it all up with the camera movements and stuff. So when the camera moves, the background moves with it that's on that screen. And so you get, like, if the sun is in the background, like there's a shining bit so that on his chrome helmet shines.
Yeah.
Or sorry, Beskar helmet. No. Let's be real here.
Yeah, let's be precise here.
Right.
Especially with Star Wars.
Exactly. Because someone's going to jump down my throat if I don't say Beskar. And so I was watching that, and I thought to myself, like, that's an interesting way to do that, because then they don't have to create the background after the fact. It's already there.
Oh.
Right. They're not on a green screen.
Yeah. It's they've shot the actor on film or digital, whatever, but they've shot the actors with their background.
Right.
Instead of having to green screen and now make it.
Right. And then all of the things that are sort of off in the distance they're supposed to be reacting to are there. It's like, that's cool. And so that sort of turned around in my brain for a little bit. And I was like, like when they made cartoons in the 80s and that, like everything, like the backgrounds were a background and the characters were on a cell sheet.
Mm-hmm.
And so they didn't draw the background really for every scene.
Yeah.
Individually, like 24 times for every second. They didn't draw that many backgrounds. And so I thought, like, I'm already doing the inking digitally. And I'm spending a lot of time. And the backgrounds in volume 2 are not bad. They're better than volume 1. Well, they're different than volume 1. because like volume one, it was all drawn and inked and colored by hand. And then there's some sort of textures, and sometimes like space is much better in volume two than volume one, and that looks good. So space was
Yeah.
usually sort of pre-done. So what I got onto in for volume three was that they go to, so it's called biomes, and because they go to different environments. So I painted swamp background, like like I don't think I made it big enough. I've learned from this already, but um, it was a page high and like 6 pages wide. The swamp background I painted.
Oh, cool.
And so then I would have my characters, and okay, they're in the swamp, and I'm just gonna draw like the cell of the characters and ink out
Oh.
the characters, and then put the background there. And then when I want them to interact with the background, like Zoe's in the swamp and she's got to splash around or whatever, I just put that like background, characters, splashes
Yeah.
in front. I was like, I'm sure it's cheating. I'm sure so many people are screaming at their YouTube right now, this is cheating. But it might be. But why not? Because it's good enough for 80s cartoons. It's good enough for me.
I mean, yeah, if it's heck, I'm pretty sure it's still done today where you'll have like a solid background, your characters on one plane or layer if you're doing it in like Animator or Photoshop or Illustrator or whatever. And to do exactly that, that's really good thinking. And that way, for your splash, you can draw your character on one layer, or however that your next cell or layer draw the splash, and then that's all on your background.
Right. And so
Cool. Okay.
what then I could do is um it made it so I could have consistent scenes and consistent color schemes. Like I wasn't trying to, oh, what color was that? Oh yeah, and then what color was the dust on this part? It was this or whatever. It was all there. It was already there. And
Huh.
so it really changed the way I approached the pencils as I went forward, because I'd already penciled the first two issues with backgrounds and with this and with that, like just sort of like I did volume two and like I did volume one
Mm.
for the pencils. And then toward the end of the sixth issue that's in volume three, it's sort of like here I know where they are in my head. Like, oh, they're on. I don't want to spoil the last book, but they're in this place. I know where they are, and so I've drawn the characters, and then there's more likely than not there might be little notes around, like, oh, use the same background as in this panel on this other page because they're passing by the same thing again, or this. Make sure there's things in front of them here for what's going on in this thing. And so the pencils become a little bit more vague uh, for what's in the background.
Mm.
And so then I'm already working on volume four.
Oh my
I
god!
was
I
going
was
to take
gonna ask later, but okay.
it turned into like a week and a half. And so I know now, like, oh, I can make this even better by having layers to my background so that there's things in the midground and the foreground that they can be in front and behind and whatever consistent
Yeah,
all the way through. And so that was the big change for me in my process and how that worked.
that's really cool. Like it's interesting that you're doing it that way because oftentimes when I've talked to other creators and artists, and even like some of the DC Comics and Marvel people that I've read interviews for, they often either refer to themselves as the rare one I find is artist, then it's a little more common as illustrator, and then the popular one seems to be cartoonist or someone who makes cartoons.
Right.
And for me, like I always just growing up, I always really hardcore was like, okay, a cartoonist would make a cartoon on TV, a illustrator or an artist will make a comic and they'll draw the comic. But that what you're doing really merges those two and is like makes it super clear on how that term is very applicable. That's really cool.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, it seemed like a logical step for me to take if I'm working digitally. And
I was gonna ask, yeah. So you're like you said, you're going digitally. Are you uh, in the Apple products there, or are you within sort of like Adobe and things like that?
Photoshop mostly. So I still draw on paper. I feel like I get a better. I don't know. I can't draw digitally. I don't know how to do it. I guess I don't know. I like the feel,
Mm-hmm.
but then yeah, I upgraded my tablet. So instead of having a my Samsung, which was nice, I had a Tab Pro S, and now I've got a Surface, which is
Ooh.
actually way better. Sorry, Samsung, but
No, yeah, I've had a Surface, and actually I had two of them, the 2 and 3, and I quite liked them for when I had them. Um, yeah, they're fantastic, especially how mobile they are, little snap-off keyboards and stuff.
yeah. Oh, it's great. It is great. And so it runs Photoshop really well. And so I haven't figured out how to go and use just Photoshop. So I use Photoshop now to do the inking, and then I switch over to Sketchbook to do the coloring,
Oh, okay.
and then I switch back to do all the shading and highlights and stuff. Um, Part of it is because Sketchbook has the Copic color palette,
Yeah.
which is really easy to browse through in Sketchbook. I have it in Photoshop, but it's like this little tiny window, and like it's yeah,
Photoshop is a very powerful artistic tool, but I find it has so much in it that you need to study the program to be able to use it. I find.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I have got better at it. It's funny you say that. My friend Matt, he has been a sort of a visual artist his whole life, and he got this new job. I don't know how much I'm allowed to say, but it's not in my
okay.
story to tell either, really. He got this new job, and he's working on Photoshop. And one of his posts on Facebook was like I've been using this program for 20 years, and now I'm learning new things because of the new job I have. Because there's, like you say, there's so much in it
Yes.
that, like, until you need to do something, you don't know that that tool exists in Photoshop, but it does.
Yeah, it's a wild program. Like, cause I use it for here, but I use it in like the most minimal way you could use Photoshop. I use it to just copy and paste images and make little thumbnails and stuff like that.
Right.
Um, so yeah, my limited use is just like a couple buttons. Whereas I've seen stuff, like other artists, like Stefan Sejic comes to mind, that have like custom brushes and all these unique little windows that pop up, and it's just so much to follow. I just don't know how they do it.
Yeah,
And
I'm not
yeah,
there yet.
you're yeah, well, you're on your way learning. Uh, so when it comes to Volume 3 Biomes, I did want to ask, where did the name Biomes come from? You mentioned earlier it's because they sort of venture and see these different spots, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and I was trying to find a name that sort of better captured what it was because they're fighting sort of space pirate guys who are trying to take over this planet, and I was like Omega Squad versus the space pirates, and I was like that doesn't really fit with the beef I've got going along.
Yeah.
Um, and then I was like, well, they're all in different environments, and what's a word you use for different environments? And I remembered way back, way back when I was in high school, so many years ago. We went to Montreal to the Biodome.
Oh.
It was the old velodrome from the Olympics.
Mm-hmm.
And so in the Biodome, there was like a jungle environment, and there was this environment, and that environment. And it was because it was so massive, this building, they could create these different environments. It was the Biodome. It's like, oh, that's like, so I sort of like, what's the actual word for different environments that goes along with that? And it was biomes. And so that's why I picked that.
Yeah. So when it comes to the story of the book, for people out there who are, maybe watching this and going, "What the heck are these guys talking about? What's the book even about?" Can you give me a synopsis of maybe the first the concept of who's in the book, and then sort of the adventure that they go on. Obviously, no spoilers, but just so people know what Volume 3 Biomes sort of is about for them.
Sure, yeah. So Omega Squad Volume 3 Biomes. It's about the team, the Omega Squad. So, and that's a team that's been together since midway through the first volume. All four of them are there. So there's Jago, Anya, Altair, and Zoe. And if you've read the first couple of books, Jago and Anya are sort of, they think they're the last group of their detachment, and they go and they find Zoe, and then they go and rescue Altair. And by the end of the first volume, they're all together. In the second volume, they go and they are battling to save the galaxy from space, from a mutant army. And right at the end of that book, a shadowy figure comes and crash lands in front of them and is like, I need your help. And then, 6 months later, I finished writing volume 3, and you find out that shadowy figure is actually a kind of a spin-off from a Nintendo property called Splatoon. He's got little squid ears, he's got the black mask eyes and stuff. Sorry, my cat's like chasing his own tail in the corner. And he's asking them for help because there's space pirates that are trying to terraform his planet. And so obviously the heroes do what heroes do. And they're like, yeah, we can help you out. And so they go and they get all new gear because it's fun to change costumes. and really the other costumes were done in black and white because the first book was black and white. And then that's where they finally had those outfits, not costumes, outfits by the end of volume 1. And so in this book, they've got those, and they go to this planet, and there's kind of Man of Steel-ish spires but instead of just one, there's 4 of them, and they're all over this planet in different environments. There's my 4. I'm going the wrong one. And so they're all in different biomes, and so they all split up, and they all take one spire each that they're going to take out, and in the middle of the book you get to see those adventures in the mountains, in the desert, in the swamp, and underwater.
Yes,
that's will they solve the problem? Find it.
I did want to say, so when going through it, I continually love the pop culture references, the characters you've brought back, as well as the new ones you've introduced. As you sort of hinted at, you've referenced quite lovingly a specific Nintendo squid-like character for your underwater areas. And yeah, I think you've done a really fun job. Embarrassingly, I didn't catch on to what they were referencing until about the end of the book. So I feel like maybe I'm not caught up enough on Nintendo and Splatoon, I'll say. Because I feel like readers, maybe younger readers, will pick this up and go, oh, hey, I know who that is.
Yeah.
Whereas they'll have the reverse of what I went through, which was I can go and, pick out all like the older cartoons and stuff from like the 90s and 80s and go, I know what that is.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's such a fun book.